Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Can we get serious now?
One thing that did happen during the 60s was some music of an unusual or experimental nature did get recorded and did get released. Now look at who the executives were in those companies at those times. Not hip young guys. These were cigar-chomping old guys who looked at the product that came and said, I don't know. Who knows what it is? Record it, stick it out. If it sells, all right. We were better off with those guys than we are now with the supposedly hip young executives who are making the decisions of what people should see and hear in the marketplace.
Success in the music business begins with a dream, a vision. This podcast will give you, the listener, the insight and tools to turn that vision into a reality. Meet the industry professionals who work day by day behind the scenes, helping to make those dreams come true. Welcome to the business side of music.
I cannot believe it's that time once again. It's been a year, gentlemen, and here we are once again in the studio. Arthur Breur and Garrett Hope are joining us today. They are two of the three folks who put together an amazing annual virtual music conference that I have been really blessed to be a part of, and that is the Ultimate Music Business Summit. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
It's been a year, really? What happened? The 2022 just seems to have flown by.
Yeah, it's completely evaporated. I don't know where it went.
Time's been really weird for a couple of years.
Oh, that's Arthur, that's the understatement, I think, of the year. It has been rather weird, and that's one of the things we're going to talk about. Real quickly, let's kind of get a recap of what you two have been doing. And Arthur, let's start with you. What have you seen in 2022?
I would say it's been really kind of a strange year. I think, of course, still, we always keep hoping we're coming out of the pandemic. And I think people have this fatigue of dealing with stuff is getting better, stuff is getting worse. And I personally have hope, and I think we all need to have hope that things are getting better and that we can have everything kind of go back to normal with some considerations. And what I've seen this year, obviously, I've been to live performances. I've gotten to go to the orchestra concerts and be with a crowd of people listening to live classical music. And I went to the Beatles concert with the Oregon Symphony just this last Sunday. And being able to go and do that and to experience the live events again and to perform in the live events again, it's a really nice thing to have. And I think we just need to be careful and cautious as we're going forward to make sure that we can keep doing these things.
Well, I agree with Arthur that I'm excited. I'm hopeful too. I'll start with hopeful because here where I am in the Midwest, things really do feel much like they did in 2019, meaning live performances, people are going out, the restaurants are still being filled up, but I think people will determine their own level of caution. And I appreciate that people are respecting each other's boundaries on that. But in terms of music, I'm really excited because there seems to be a renewed opportunities here regionally and even in town. We've brought in some major touring acts. Just our lead center, which is our big performance venue in town, one of the big performance venues, just had the Danny Elfman show come through on near the end of his tour and all that stuff. It's really fun to have that happening again.
I had lunch with an artist manager, Chuck Thompson, here in Nashville earlier this week. And we talked about the touring industry and how it's still, after 2 years, it's playing catch up. A lot of acts are finally able to replace or replenish the dates that had to be canceled or postponed. And so they're getting beyond that, but now it's looking into trying to book new dates while also trying to fulfill all those contracts that were issued in 2020 and 2021. So it's a little bit of a saturation point, at least from that aspect of it. And Chuck really felt that it's probably going to be mid to late 2023 before we start seeing a level playing field for everybody once again. So it's amazing how 1 year, year and a half, 2 years can really not only disrupt the flow of the business, but really cause a tsunami of sorts of trying to catch up to not only get all those dates replaced, be able to get new dates on the books. The good news is we're back in a live performance arena once again. And Arthur brought up the classical music scene. And I have to say, it's something that we don't touch base on a lot, and no pun intended, but as a former bassist who played in a symphony, the symphonic music scene has always been close and very dear to my heart, as has been the jazz scene. But, you know, when we look at the demographics of everybody in the music business, there's so many different slices of the pie, and each of those slices are different sizes. So we have to focus mostly on the overall generality of the music business, if I throw a big word out there. But I think that the idea of getting people back in seats and starting to create that live music entertainment engagement with the artists and in the audience is hopeful. But you now have 2 years of catching up to do. And I think that kind of gets us to the point of what you guys have been doing along with Heidi for the last, I'm going to say 2 years plus. I think this is the third year. Correct me if I'm wrong, but of the Ultimate Music Business Summit. And that is be able to provide a virtual platform for really artists from all arenas to be able to gather together and start compiling some information and hopefully continue that momentum to move forward. Am I correct?
100% you're correct. Yeah. And this is the third year. So I started it in January 2021, and I just had this vision to equip people. People were afraid. Many musicians, because most of us are gig workers and we're freelance individuals, lost opportunities. I know people who lost opportunities to make over $60,000 between gigs that were canceled, contracts that were voided, commissions, and obviously that leads into royalty payments down the line. And it was a big deal, and people were afraid. And the vision for that first conference was build your own stimulus package for 2021, because I firmly believe that as artists, we are business owners. And that's the main thing that wasn't taught at school. You might have had a music entrepreneurship class, which taught marketing. It might have taught how to handle distribution, royalty payments, copyright. But if missed the mark in that if you earn 1099 income or if you file a Schedule C, you're a small business and you need to embrace that and then learn how to operate within that. And once you learn the principles of business and what that means, you then have new advantages and you can serve your audience in new ways so your music reaches more people, has a bigger impact, and affects your bottom line too. And I brought Arthur and Heidi in because Arthur's a business owner. He's an entrepreneur in a whole different realm, as well as being a highly trained musician and composer. And he just brings a skill set to this that I didn't have. And so together as this team, along with Heidi, we're trying to serve people in this way to help them see themselves as business owners.
And I'd like to pop in here real quick and just point out, you mentioned 1099 and things like that. But even if you are an actual employee in the music business, you're still part of a business and you can think of yourself as being a business, and you should be thinking in terms of how you are serving the business and how you can help to serve the business versus just thinking I've got a job. You are still in the music business in that way. And in your own right, you are in fact a business that is being hired by the larger business. You are a service. You are providing those things that you can do to your company. So always be thinking in those terms, no matter what. And a lot of people, in the arts, we don't like to think of ourselves as being businesses. We don't like to think of ourselves as, salespeople and all that sort of stuff. And we have these mindsets around those things that get us kind of locked into negativity when we're thinking in terms of business. And it's just a really nice thing when you can get people to change the way they think about these ideas that they've had that they have negativity around.
Yeah. I don't know, Bob, if you're familiar with Robert Kiyosaki and his Rich Dad, Poor Dad books, but one of the biggest lessons I got from reading his stuff is the idea of trading time for money versus time for assets. And the employee mindset says, here, I'll do the work for you. I'll put in my hours and then you'll compensate me so much. And I think a lot of musicians, whether they're touring musicians, they're studio cats, they play in bars and restaurants, or they perform in orchestras, have that mindset. I will do this thing for you that takes time in exchange for money. And what Kiyosaki taught is that you exchange for assets. And assets are the things that put money in your pocket. So rather than trading time for money, trade time to acquire, or create things that will down the line generate further revenue. For a lot of musicians, that means compositions, recordings, content, gigs, stuff that then generates royalty income down the line, or that you can sell again and again and again. And so many musicians miss that small little shift of time for money versus time for assets.
One of the things that we constantly talk about on the show is the left brain versus right brain when it comes to the music business. And one side is very creative, very artistic, and the other side is very analytical. Unfortunately, most artists that I speak with, most entertainers that I talk to, don't seem to understand that correlation and don't work both respective sides of the brain. A lot of them, in fact, when I have conversations with them, will say, I just want to be an artist. I just want to go out and create. That's wonderful. That and $5 will get you a cup of coffee at your local favorite haunt.
That's right.
It won't put money in your bank account. And I'm guilty of that. I've got into enough ventures on my life saying, I just want to do this because it's creative and this will be fun. It'll be a way for me to express myself. And then at the end of the day, it's like, well, where's the paycheck? Because you don't really think that part of it. Or as you said, Garrett, you think of it as an employee. Just let me do my time and pay me and I'm good. But that doesn't put money in the bank. That doesn't build that nest egg that we all, as Arthur said, you're independent contractors filing the Schedule Cs. You want to be able at some point in your life to say, I want to go on vacation for 2 weeks or 3 weeks or a month. I don't want to have to work. And that's the big thing. There's a difference between wanting to work and having to work. And I think when we start using that having to work, using that latter term, it stops being fun and it starts becoming a job. And that, I find in myself, can diminish the creative aspect of things.
I want to point out that in some ways, the idea of left brain thinking being all just the business side and right brain thinking being all just the creative side, that's not fair completely to ways of thinking about business that are creative and ways of thinking about business that let you use that same mindset that you're using as an artist. So for example, the idea of getting paid. People don't like, money is this big taboo subject and people don't like to talk about it. We don't really learn about it the right way. We don't really learn the real details about it from our family. We learn this stuff kind of behind the scenes in our own minds. But if you think about being paid as receiving gratitude versus, this contract or whatever, you should get paid because you want to be thanked for what you're doing. And a thank you, somebody saying thank you, is one kind of gratitude. People applauding is another kind of gratitude. Money is just the physical representation of the gratitude for what you are providing to the business or to the audience or to whoever you are delivering your service or your product to. That's a right brain way of thinking about it. I want to have gratitude for what it is that I do, and money is just a form of gratitude. So that's kind of one way of thinking with the right brain about these, what people are thinking of as technical issues of business. And there are ways of getting around these kind of locked in, ideas that business is all just dusty books on a shelf that you've got to learn and it's all gears and grinding. And, business itself can have its own fun elements as well and its own creative elements.
Yeah, I love that, Arthur. I agree with you so much. And there's this kind of anti-capitalist mentality in the arts communities too, where going for money feels evil or wrong or in some way morally reprehensible. But if you want to have a roof over your house and gas in your car and food in the fridge, then you have to exchange what you're doing for money and put your assets, your goods to the best purposes and to serve people. And Bob, I can tell you that between Heidi and Arthur and I, what we believe is that your business works best, the art works best when it's in service to a community. And that what that means is, who are you communicating with? What are they searching for? And how can you give it to them? And we could go through hundreds of examples from popular music and classical music, if you wanted to, about how these artists succeeded financially by serving the desires of a particular group of people.
Also on that, the idea of work being something that you're not supposed to enjoy. Mm-hmm. That's that's kind of the American dream, is you work hard and you knuckle down and you get to where you're going because you just, well, first of all, we as musicians, I know we've done a lot of hard work in the practice room and with gigs and all these things that are hard to do as we're doing them. But the idea that you can't enjoy what it is that you do that brings you income is this really weird mindset that we have to donate what we're doing because it's a gift. What we're doing, again, is something that deserves gratitude, and money is just gratitude. But the idea that you can't have fun doing the thing that is giving you money and giving you prosperity, that's just a really unique mental illness, I think, that we have across this country.
On the show with us today, Arthur Breur and Garrett Hope, who are with the Ultimate Music Business Summit.
You're listening to the business side of music.
Hi, everyone. I'm Larry Butler, and I want to send you a free digital copy of my new book, The Singer-Songwriter Rulebook, 101 Ways to Help You Improve Your Chances of Success. That's right. Everything you need to know to launch your career as a singer-songwriter, all based on my 40 years in the live performance arena. And believe me, I've seen it all. In my book, you'll find the 10 things you have to deal with before even thinking about becoming a singer-songwriter performer. You'll also learn about the 5 things every singer-songwriter can do this weekend to make their live show better. 5 things I can guarantee that you are not doing already. Plus, there's tips on songwriting and staging, photo and video shoots, publishing, merch, dozens of other topics. All written for people who don't particularly like to read. And again, it's free. Just go to the Business Side of Music website homepage and look for my book cover. Click on it, and a free digital copy of my book will be yours. I'm Larry Butler, and I approve of this message.
As a musician, you have a dream, that vision of what success looks like for you. Though it's not only about the money, money is part of it. Whether you've been extremely successful or you're just striving to maintain a regular cash flow, you need a plan. Money Concepts can help you develop a customized plan to achieve the financial stability and success you want. For over 40 years, Money Concepts has been providing holistic financial planning services to individuals, families, and business owners. As an independent firm, Money Concepts and their associates are committed to always represent the best interest of the client. It's really about a committed, benevolent interest in them personally. This independence, coupled with that committed, benevolent interest, means they represent you, the client, not a product supplier. It's not about selling products, it's about helping you achieve success. To learn how this can benefit you, contact my buddy, John Adams, with Money Concepts at 737-867-9309. That's 737-867-9309. You can also email John at jadams@moneyconcepts.com.
You're listening to the business side of music.
Back on the show, Arthur Breur and Garrett Hope, who are the head honchos, I'm going to say, of the Ultimate Music Business Summit Conference that is coming up in January. And we're going to talk about those details here shortly. Along with, they are going to be gracing us with 2 tickets to give away to be able to attend the virtual Ultimate Music Business Summit in January. And we'll have details on how you can enter to win. I think one of the things is, we touched on this briefly earlier, and during the break, you guys were kind of bantering back and forth about this, is that hope of getting past this pandemic that we've had. And we still have kind of like blips and beeps about it going around. We're still dealing with some, people are still catching COVID, although it's not the death penalty that it was nearly as much as it was, a year or two ago. But it's still out there. Everybody's still being cautious. Are we at a place in the music industry at this point where artists can start feeling comfortable and getting back out there and being in front of an audience and performing? Let's not even think about the audience for a moment. When we talk about a classical entity, rock and roll band's one thing, 4 or 5 or 6, maybe 7 people on a stage, and they're pretty much keeping a safe distance. But in a classical world, it's a very close-knit, literally and figuratively, community on stage.
So for example, right now, I'm on the board. I'm the composer in residence for the Tualatin Valley Symphony, which is a community orchestra in Oregon. And there's a masking policy and a vaccination policy for players, because we want to make sure that all the players are safe and healthy. And so we have those rules. We haven't yet changed those rules, and we have resistance from a number of players that they don't want to make that rule go away. They want to still have the vaccination rules, and they still want to have the masking rules. And there's an argument either way that at some point, if you have enough people that are vaccinated, enough people that are protected, then having people who aren't is not as much the danger as it could be. But at the same time, we do have this emotional reaction after these 2 years of dealing with this and going through all these things, that it becomes an issue. If this person isn't vaccinated, I won't be at the concert. And you are sitting right next to people. You can't have an orchestra spread out with everybody with 6 feet between them. I've seen it performed that way, but you do start ending up with sound difference or timing of the sound getting from one end of the orchestra to the other, if you even have a venue where you can fit people that far apart. So for a full orchestra, you've got to be pretty much almost shoulder to shoulder. You're sitting there right next to each other. And with wind instruments, there's no way you can be wearing a mask while you're playing wind instruments. String players, it's different. You can be masked all the time. But for wind, your breath is the instrument. It is the sound. And the breath is the problem. And that's what people are afraid of still. And I think I was saying on the break, I kind of feel like we are suffering from some level of, as a society, some level of a mental illness or a post-traumatic situation where we are still emotionally trying to deal with everything we've gone through and getting back to what you would call normal.
You brought up something, in fact, the trickle-down effect of that. Our youngest granddaughter, who is a little over 2 years, almost 2.5 years old, has never lived in a world that didn't have masks, that didn't have social interaction, or I should say did have social interaction. And the developing skills seem to be muted somewhat for little kids. And I think what we're talking about here, when you talk about, the mental illness or the PTSD, and I think that term can be thrown out quite easily to cover a broad stroke of the paintbrush of different aspects of, society. But at the same time, what we're recovering from now is still going to take several years and maybe a generation to get back to normal in the live music aspect, because we've now unfortunately drilled that into the younger community to wear masks and be safe and don't get too close to people. And let's face it, when we go to a live performance, when we go to a musical event, a concert, we're engaging in a world that is stimulating our senses and stimulating our emotions. And you can't very successfully mute that or diminish that and have it be something that is fulfilling. At least that's my perspective.
The arts is something that heightens the experience, whatever it is you're experiencing. So that could be a relationship. It could be an activity, and it could be an emotion, and it just makes it more. And that's why music is so powerful, especially when it's coupled with other forms of art, like in an opera or in a film And so I think you're right. We can't successfully experience the arts to the extent that they can move us when we are doing what we can to separate stuff. So there's this push and pull between safety and concern, as well as wanting to create the art that's going to move people and experience the art the way you want to be moved. And it's this hard balancing act. And some parts of the world have treated this differently. So the different regions, even within the United States, are experiencing the results of these efforts in different ways. And I have no interest in getting political on this at all. What I think is people need to assess their own safety and their own health concerns and balance that. And as for performers and people who want to be out there gigging, you have to also take into consideration that people want to come and see you. And that means they might have to sit next to somebody else, like Arthur was saying.
And a total stranger.
Yeah, it's a big community. And the arts requires a performer and it requires an audience. So I think there's a lot of things to balance as we make these decisions.
Yeah, and another thing to keep in mind, I mean, again, no matter what side of any political spectrum you're on, right now, politically, everybody basically thinks that things are a mess. Financially, things are, in our country, there's a mess.
Scary.
And this is, we have all this stuff coming out of the pandemic that's not even emotional stuff, but business and financial and political stuff that's happening. And that adds to the stress levels. But at the same time, historically, this is technically a creative opportunity as well.
Oh, yeah.
Because when times are troubled and when people are emotionally stressed out, music and arts are things that can bring us together, that can make us feel better, that can tell a story, that can give us a shared experience that uplifts us from being stressed out and from being depressed and all those things. This is an opportunity to create the music and create the art that uplifts people.
I'm going to show my age here a little bit, but my mom and dad were Depression era people. They grew up in the Depression. That's when they got married. That's when they started working. And one of the things that I remember my dad telling, my dad was very musically inclined and he loved big band music. And he said that what got so many people through the Great Depression of the 1930s was music and film. Now, we think of movies today, I'm just going to turn on Netflix or Amazon Prime or whatever and watch something. Back in those days, you bought a ticket, you went to the theater, you sat in an audience with another, and in some aspects, large groups of people. Some of these theaters could be 1,000, 2,000 seats. And you collectively watched a movie, or you went to a concert, or you went to a big band dance. And it was that sense of being able to, at least for a little bit of time, whether it be an hour or 2 hours or the evening, you got to forget what was going on in the world and just absorb the good music. And I think we've got to remember that in spite of everything that is going on in the world, and the last thing I ever do is talk about politics on this show. If anybody knows me, we just don't go down that path. But I think this, to me, is the best time to collectively get together and start engaging in those arts and entertainment once again. Because to me, I think it's a great healing process.
Yeah.
Well, and the other side of the 1930s, people getting together with music and films and things like that, the Walkman it wasn't going to be invented for another 50 years or so at that point. MP3s were, nowhere in the future for there. You couldn't have the music all to yourself. You couldn't lock yourself in a room with a headset and listen to the music. You had to be social to experience music. Unless if you were sitting playing a guitar at home or a piano, that's one way you could have music to yourself. But otherwise, music had to involve community. And to me, that's one of the things I love about live performance is it does bring people together.
Yeah.
And in cases of, for example, the orchestra or concert band or big band, it brings a bunch of people together to create the music as well as a bunch of people together to listen to the music.
Yeah.
Not that I am downplaying a solo performance in any way, because those are fantastic. But the idea of bringing people together for music it's historically been the way things work. And now we've got this, these devices that just can isolate us, and we can say, oh yeah, I love music. And you're sitting on your couch with your headphone on, not paying attention to anybody else.
with that being said, I'm going to segue into really one of the reasons that we had you two gentlemen on the show today. And trust me, I think the three of us collectively, or me just sitting here and listening to you talk, we could have a conversation all day long. But I really want to get to kind of the meat and the potatoes. And that is the Ultimate Music Business Summit. And what you guys have put together, what Garrett created in 2021, right at the very beginning of the pandemic, and trying to create an event, virtual event albeit, but an event that people within the entertainment world can get together and start socializing, at least over the internet, and can maybe start learning some things. So let's talk about, first of all, the Ultimate Music Business Summit 2023. What do people have to look forward to who want to join this and be a part of it?
Well, first off, it's 3 days with nearly 30 presenters, and we will have multiple presentations happening at a time. We hope it'll feel much like a live conference where you go to an event and you can enter this room or you can enter that room, but there's content ranging from the best use of social media to market yourself, to how to build a teaching studio, to marketing principles, how people deal with the mindset issues. Because let's be honest, like as Arthur was pointing out earlier in the conversation, if you don't have your thinking right, you're never going to be able to build your career. And plus some of the more nitty-gritty stuff around business-related issues. There will be networking opportunities, which we experimented with last year because we're going to use a platform called Run the World. And this is a virtual conferencing platform that allows people to shuffle. It does this kind of automatically. So you can meet hundreds of people throughout the conference. You can private message them on the platform, and you can come and go as you wish between these presentations. And the VIP ticket gives you access to all the recordings. So you don't have to worry about which one you're going to choose, or if you have to go take care of an issue, or if you have to work, because you can always watch that at another time.
Yeah. And this is also something we scheduled it. When Garrett scheduled it in the first place, he landed on a really great time of the year. It's right after New Year's. Things are relatively quiet that week. And this, for 3 days, basically of intense presentations, we've had people who are just like, this is so much, there's so much content here. And then in some cases, it feels overwhelming to be able to go and attend all these different things. But you can pick and choose. You can look and see the things that are meaningful to you and the things that you need to learn about, or or you can think of it from a networking standpoint. Who is this person who's a presenter? Do I want to meet the presenter? Who are the people who are going to be attending this? Are there other people who I'd want to meet who might be attending this event or this particular presentation? And that particular, the size of it, 3 days of kind of daily rich content, it's a very impressive thing. For Garrett to have done this by himself in 2021, because I remember when he called me and he said, I want to do this thing. I feel like right now the world is stressed and I want to do this thing right now to help people. Would you participate in that? And I was absolutely. And everybody, pretty much, I'm sure everybody you asked said yes, because it's Garrett. And Garrett is somebody that people really like working with. And he has these, he has all of these connections with business and so forth. And those turned into a really amazing thing in 2021, but it was all recorded presentations. So you could participate, but it was basically like watching a pre-recorded video. With the live presentation, the way we did it this year in January, it makes a huge difference because people can ask questions live. Mm-hmm. And if it's something, that isn't going to be part of the presentation, the person can answer that live. If the person, they can also say, I'll answer that in the Q&A after. But it gives you the interaction, and it gives you, as a presenter, it gives the presenters the opportunity to see the reaction to what they're doing and see how people are responding, and to get that rewarding, again, the gratitude back from your audience. And the topics are really wide ranging. We try to make sure that it's not going to be all one-sided. It's not going to be all one part of the industry. We don't want it to just be rock or classical or live performance versus education. We try and get everything that we can possibly get in there in terms of topics.
I think something else that you brought up too was the social interacting that we're able to do with each other, social networking. the kind of the virtual handing of business cards to one another. I have actually created and developed some really nice relationships with people that I've met off of Ultimate Music Business Summit. And those have been going on for 3 years now. And they're great conversations that I still have with these people. And they're hundreds, if not thousands of miles away from me. Now, you're talking to someone who's very old school. I am a major advocate of going to physical events. My wife and I attended Music Biz earlier this year in May, along with Americana Fest, the NAMM show. You run out of business cards at those events because there's just so many people to meet and greet, and you're rubbing elbows and you're exchanging ideas. I was never much of a virtual person until, and I got to tell you, I'm just laying it right on the table. Garrett, when you first approached me with Ultimate Music Business Summit, I went, okay, I'll give it a shot. Let's see what happens. I have not, and I'm not saying this because you guys are here. I'm saying it because it's fact. I have never been disappointed in this event. It is so unlike so many others in that, yes, you provide a broad-based spectrum of different topics of conversation, but you also create an environment to where it's very comfortable. It's kind of putting that warm sweater on, feeling good and being able to sit back and be a part of a community that I honestly don't think you could get at some live events. I mentioned one conference that we went to. I walked out of a couple of those workshops with just a deer in the headlight glazed look in my eyes because I just couldn't connect. And I think that's the neat thing about the Ultimate Music Business Summit. And I'm tooting your guys' horn. I'm just letting you know. But I think that is what's so important about this because you provide such a laid-back, almost casual atmosphere that there's no way you can't become interactive with it.
Yeah, and I'm going to point out that every live event I've ever been to, there's been, you go to a seminar and you're in the audience with a whole bunch of people, and there's somebody in the audience that you want to meet, or you want to meet the presenter afterwards. And at the end of the presentation, there's just this madness of everybody running around all over the place. And then, so many times I lose track of that person who I'm actually trying to get to. In a virtual situation, when you see somebody who's in the room with you watching this presentation, you can message them. This is a situation where you can communicate back and forth with other people. You can say, hey, so-and-so, I want to talk to you. It kind of levels the playing field in terms of connectivity between the different people at the presentations, whether you're in the audience or whether you're the presenter. And it puts everybody at the same position in terms of being able to introduce yourself. You don't have to fight through a crowd to get to somebody. You don't have to worry about that person having the next thing they've got to go off and get to because you've connected with them. And the connection being virtual means it's still there after they've walked out of the room.
That's right.
On the show with us today, Arthur Breur and Garrett Hope, who are with Ultimate Music Business Summit.
You're listening to the business side of music.
Hey friends, this is Dr. Garrett Hope. I am a speaker, coach, and composer. I am also host of the Portfolio Composer podcast and founder and executive director of the Ultimate Music Business Summit. The third annual Ultimate Music Business Summit is a 3-day virtual conference that'll be held on January 5th, 6th, and 7th, 2023. This 3-day virtual event features over 24 speakers to help you build your music business. As a musician, you care about your art. You want to make a difference in your community and in the world. You want to pass your knowledge on to your students, and you want to do more than trade your time for money and just get by every month. UMBS is all about the one thing you didn't learn in music school, realizing that you are a business. It offers dozens of ways to build a career as an independent musician, including marketing, copywriting, studio development, mindset, money, and networking opportunities. Whether you're a composer, touring musician, studio teacher, recording artist, or professor, UMBS is for you. Get your ticket now at musicsummit.biz.
Whether you consider yourself a musician or not, music is all around us, and it affects our everyday lives, whether it's background music influencing our shopping habits in a store, organ music adding the vibe to a baseball game, or a playlist convincing us to keep going on that last mile of a run. I'm Mindy Peterson, host of the podcast Enhance Life with Music, where we take a holistic look at music's benefits through the lens of science and medicine, entertainment, and business. You can find me and Enhance Life with Music at mpetersonmusic.com/podcast or wherever you get your audio.
You're listening to the business side of music.
Back on the show, Garrett Hope and Arthur Breur, who are with Ultimate Music Business Summit. It's its third year coming up
January 5, 6, and 7, 2023.
And people can register how?
Go to musicsummit.biz, B-I-Z, and you can get your tickets. You can see the list of presenters. We're just now finishing off the schedule, so people can check that out. And there are multiple ticket options based on how you want to interact with the conference.
And I was online this morning. I went to the website and checked it out and saw the list of speakers that you have lined up so far. A lot of really great speakers. For some reason, I saw a picture of myself there, so we'll see how that one goes. And let's have a disclaimer here. That's not why we're doing this episode, because I happen to be one of the speakers. We're doing this episode because this is something that is very near and dear to my heart, and that is being able to provide a platform for artists to grow their business and grow their career, and I think that is very important. And I think that over these 3 days that you're talking about, how many workshops, how many different types of events will be going on each day?
So we have 30 presentations scheduled and a keynote, and they're happening 2 at a time throughout the day. So basically every single day you're getting at least 10 presentations that you can attend, picking and choosing if you have the level of ticket that lets you choose one. And of course, if you are a VIP ticket, you can then have the recordings of the presentations for after. So you get access to every single presentation, even though we can't all be in 2 places at the same time.
In fact, I was going to say, you don't have to concern yourself trying to attend every single event like you would if it was an actual physical conference. You can go back and catch up.
That's right.
Yes.
And if you want to get interactive, the VIP ticket allows you to enter into a question and answer time with the presenters. And like Arthur said, if you want to meet these presenters or if you have specific questions for your situation, this is how you can actually ask and get some input and get some help, whatever you need.
And I will tell you, as a past speaker myself, and thank you in advance for the opportunity to be able to do it again this next year. But I have really had I've had some very deep and thought-provoking questions asked to me by people that were attending that causes me to think about what my answer should be to navigate these waters. So it is a really important event, and I think that the one big plus side is not having to be there for every single one. And I know that's a tough thing for myself when I go to a conference and I want to go to this event, but it's the same time as this event. And then will I have enough time to get over to this other event? You don't have to worry about that with this. You can, with the VIP tickets especially, you can set your own timetable. Will they still be able to communicate with the speakers at each of those if they're not there live?
Everyone could be reachable through their websites and contact information. We're putting together a program book that will have everyone's information and their websites. So anyone can go to the speakers' URLs and use the contact page and ask questions that way.
So let's dig a little more into the information. We've talked about the dates of when it is. How do they go about registering and what's the cost?
So they can go to musicsummit.biz, and that's the easiest way to get your ticket right now. And we have essentially 2 different ticket options. We have the regular ticket, which right now through the end of October is discounted some. It's
but the full price will be $37. And that allows you to access any of the presentations live. You can also go to two of the networking, speed networking sessions, as well as the keynote and the plenary or the group sessions. And the VIP ticket, which the full price is going to run $197, allows you access to all of the recordings afterwards, a special VIP networking event, and a few other goodies that we're kind of keeping in reserve. And we have student options for these because we know that as a student, the budgets are quite a bit tighter. We remember what it's like to be a student. So if you're still in school, we want you to be as equipped as you can be when you graduate. So we've made some more affordable options of the regular ticket and the VIP ticket.
And once again, this is January 5th, 6th, and 7th, the Ultimate Music Business Summit. Arthur and Garrett have been gracious enough to give us 2 tickets. I'm going to call them 2 tickets to Paradise, based on the old Eddie Money song, that we're going to be giving away to a lucky winner or 2. And the best way to do that is to reach out to our email address, which is musicpodcast@mail.com. It is not Gmail. It's just musicpodcast@mail.com. Send us an email. We will be drawing from that to give 2 winners, 1 ticket each, to be able to attend the 2023 Ultimate Music Business Summit. It's a great event. I think it's something that every artist in the world, every music creative person in the world should put on their calendars and aspire to attend.
I'm going to point out real quick before Garrett and I get in real trouble that we are only 2 of the people on the executive team. It's a 3-person executive team. Heidi Kay Begay is the other person on the team, and she couldn't be here for the podcast today, but she sends her love, obviously, and she is a huge force with putting this whole thing together.
And knowing Heidi as well as I do now, and once again, another individual I met from the conference, we don't want to mess with her anyway, because she is a force to be reckoned with.
Exactly.
She's wonderful. She's a real force to reckon with, too.
Yeah, but a great force. So once again, Ultimate Music Business Summit, January 5th, 6th, and 7th. You go to the website, register to join. This is a must-do event for anybody that's a music creative that you want to attend. And I want to give a quick shout-out real quick. No, don't normally do this, but every once in a while I'll go back and I'll find an episode where someone has posted something that tells me they've been listening to our show, and I always like to recognize some of our listeners. Donna McClure Gibbons and Lynette Coleman, I know, listen to our podcast. I hope they're listening to this one today. Arthur and Garrett, thank you so much for being on the show, and I look forward to being a part of this. Much, much success for what you guys are doing.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
We're looking forward to your presentation, too.
Sarah Fleshner will be joining me like she did this year. And we're looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Bob.
The Business Side of Music is the creation of Tom Sabella and Tracy Snow and is produced by Bob Bender. The Business Side of Music is recorded at Music Dog Studios in Nashville, Tennessee. Production sound design by Keith Stark. Voiceover and promo by Lisa Busan.